Terima kasih Wafa. Sekarang kita akan beralih ke Paris untuk mendengarkan gambaran umum tentang Journalism Emergency Relief Fund dari Ludovic Blecher, Head of Google News Initiative Innovation. Over to you, Ludo.
Thanks, Jason. And hi, everyone. Many thanks for having me today. I'm Ludovic. I'm the head of the Google News Initiative Innovation. I'm a former journalist and a really passionate news person. I'm very sorry. I wish I could be with you today, but you know what it is in those terrible times of pandemic. So I'm in my living room in Paris, and I'll do my best to tell you everything about the Journalism Emergency Relief Fund. At Google, everyone called me Ludo, but some colleagues even call me Papa Jeff, as you would say in your country. Jeff is the acronym for the Journalism Emergency Relief Fund, and this is an initiative we've launched when the COVID pandemic hit the world. And today, I'm going to walk you through this journey and tell you almost everything about it. So first, let me tell you a bit more about my role at Google. What I'm doing on a day-to-day basis is to push for innovation. I'm leading a team which implement innovation challenges for news publishers. Basically, those are open call for projects to stimulate the ecosystem, to help news publishers and journalists to inject new ideas in the publishing industry and the news ecosystem. So my job is really to have conversation with publishers, with editor-in-chief, with journalists, and to push them to come with moving forward thinking, with new business model, with new ideas and new way to generate a more sustainable future for news. But when the pandemic hit the world, well, everything started being on a lockdown, as you know, from one day to the other. And so everything turned upside down. Ads revenue dramatically dropped, and even meeting in a newsroom became almost impossible. The level of disruption basically forced everyone to innovate, to create a new workflow, to create a distributed newsroom in order to ensure the day-to-day production of news without being able to meet in the paper offices. And they shift the coverage from one day to the other almost to a single topic in order to serve their audience and their community. And my conversation with the journalist, with the CEO of all those organizations were all the same. Look, don't push us to innovate. We have no choice. We are innovating day to day, but it's no matter of survivance. We need help just to handle the situation, to pivot and to figure out new recipes to continue serving our audiences. So it's like an earthquake. When there is an earthquake, you don't start by rebuilding. You provide an emergency, an immediate solution. That was the intent with the Emergency Relief Fund. It was dedicated to look at news, and through this initiative, what we wanted was launching a relief fund to deliver an urgent aid to thousands of small, medium, and local publishers, because we already felt they were the one close to their community that needed it the most at the time. So how did it work? Well, when you want to do this at a global level, the scale is complicated to handle. So you have to define rules and criteria. It took 1 month for that. And then we opened the application. In 2 weeks only, we received more than 12,000 applications. And we selected in 1 month 5,600 newsrooms, and we've offered 39 million in funding to provide this immediate answer. More than 300 Googlers has been involved in the review process. If you look at the distribution, you can see that 35 million were offered in 115 countries in the world. That says a lot about the scale. So what did we learn and we apply globally? So mainly from the Europe and North America, and they were ahead of Latin America and APAC, 16% of the applicants in Asia Pacific. Most of the applicants were small newsroom, between 2 and 25 journalists. And most of the applicants, more than 80%, so the large majority, were newspaper or digital only players, most of them with kind of what we can call small audiences, which is not bad at all because they are very engaged on the audiences with less than 1 million monthly visitors. So I just told you more about what we learned globally, but I also made some digging. I wanted to do my homework before speaking in front of you all and tell you more about Indonesia. So first, let's have a look at the numbers. 400 applicants came from Indonesia with a majority of small newsroom with less than 25 journalists. At the end of the day, we distributed 1.2 million to 186 Indonesian media outlets. And what did we learn? At the time of the application, so prior to COVID, the main source of revenue for those media were advertising and events. But at the time, it was really interesting to notice that 10% mentioned building and growing other revenue as something really important for them. And when they were asked about their top of mind needs, self-declaration from those applicants were growing audience and engagement and building and growing subscription. Those two were seen as priority, which will end up being really a trend in the region. Another thing that really surprised us was to see that Indonesia has the most online-only journalists. If you look at the number of publications that are online-only, you have more in the US with more than 300, but in Indonesia, for 275 online-only publications, you have more than 4,000 journalists, so it was interesting to notice. Now, I'm going to tell you about the recipients in Indonesia. 186 media received the funding, and you will hear directly from them because 3 of them will come here and join us to tell you more about the use of the funding. Most of the time, the funding has been used really to meet operational costs during the pandemic and to carry out various innovation programs. They will tell you more. I'm going to hand off to Frederica. My colleague Frederica will lead the conversation with 3 very important local media which are recipients. So floor is yours, Frederica.